Namaskar. Namaskar and welcome back to the Eikam series on the Gita on the go. And what a journey it has been. Just in the last couple of conversations, we have moved from understanding the field, our fields, our limited fields and the unlimited. And we have transcended the journey of figuring out how do you transcend this change, how the Paramatman manifests itself in the SatChidAnanda and works through the ropes of the three guna of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, through us, to us, for us and with us. And therefore, all that we need to do is make sure of who we are, the Daiva Asura Sampad. And we need to make sure that we are in the Daiva Sampad and not the Asura Sampad. And the Daiva Sampad requires us only to be fearless, have purity of intention, to give, to offer, to be, and to make sure that we are not differentiating between the one and the other. And what it requires us to do is Shraddha, is the Shraddhatraya, which is approach in very many ways. We are going back to where we started from, because as we said, everything is a spiral, it's a full circle. It comes back full circle, but then elevated. Exactly what we have done. We started way back in chapter 4 on approaching everything as the yajna. And that was the only way to distance yourself from the karma phala, from the fruits of your actions. And here's where we've come back in terms of saying that how we approach something and how every action that we do, and we are qualifying that action now, carries with it the bhav of either tamasic or rajasic or sattva. Everything we do, whether it's the food we eat, whether it's the way we work, whether it's the way we worship, whether it's the way we do charity and give back, every one of them just carries the bhav, the guna. And all we need to do is to be aware of our action, and action mane karma. Karma, whether it's in the body, whether it's in the mind or in the intellect, whether we're aware of what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling. And then we need to be aware of our emotions behind it. Hum kis bhav se kar rahe hain? And that bhav, whether it's tamasic or rajasic or sattvic, and whether we can make that shift, and therefore what the intention is, because the intention, being aware of our own intentions, is what will allow us to make that shift. With that established, we are now stepping into the last chapter of the Bhagwad Gita, which is Adhyaya 18, which is on the Moksha Sanyasa Yoga. And this is where it is with great pleasure, privilege and absolute delight that I welcome Samir back with us.
Namaste.
Samir, namaskar and welcome back to the Gita on the go.
Thank you very much.
So, this is the last chapter.
Yes, of course.
So, I have now the climax questions for you.
Yep.
Okay. We've spoken about our intention, we've spoken about karma, our emotion, awareness, we've spoken about the Brahman, we've spoken about how we can transcend from being where we are, from the kshetra. In many ways, I'm probably joining the dots between Tat and Asi to say that from the kshetra to the kshetragya is the journey of awareness, of action, of emotion, of intention, of transcending the guna from the tamas to the sattvika, of being aware of the divine glories, which is the vibhuti, and then from vibhuti also being aware of the Brahman. We certainly can't hold the Brahman, we can't accept the Brahman, it's too vast for us. Even becoming one of the Brahman is too vast. But having been through that journey, the question that I have for you is, with all this followed, brought together and acted on with the right intention.
पहला, यदि क्या होगा से अप्रोच करने वाले हैं, तो मत करो क्योंकि वो राजसिक है.
हाँ, करेक्ट.
ट्रांजैक्शनल है.
करेक्ट.
मैं नारियल फोड़ूंगा,
हाँ,
ताकि तुम मुझे पास करा दो.
हाँ.
और या फिर उल्टा, पास करा दो, और नारियल फोड़ूंगा फिर पास करा. यार नारियल फोड़ दिया फिर पास नहीं कराया, तो इसीलिए पहले पास करा दो, फिर नारियल फोड़ूंगा. क्या होगा? See, people have interpreted this in two ways. Moksha Sanyasa Yoga, the name itself, right, depending upon the way in which the Sanskrit samas is done, Moksha Sanyasa is liberation through which is renunciation.
Yes.
Renunciation of what? Of the fruits of actions, of the limited ego, and so on and so forth. There's another meaning which can actually translate to say giving up even the desire for moksha. So it is just the desire to be aware, and to be in bliss, which is what I am, which is my essential nature. There is no moksha, right? In Nirvana Shatakam, he says, I am not moksha. Because moksha will mean that I have to go to some place where
There
I
is
am
something there.
or some place where I am not. But I am. And I am all pervasive. I am all existing. I am omnipresent because I am awareness, I am consciousness, I am bliss. Now, to go there, right, you have got to drop that desire for mokshatvam is a desire.
Yes.
And it's a necessary desire.
Yes.
Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa uses the analogy of two thorns, and he says that when the thorn pricks you, you take another thorn and you take out that thorn, but you don't then hold on to the earlier thorn and say, और एक बार कुछ चुभेगा तो उस क्या करूंगा? So you even throw that away, right? Even the desire. Gautam Buddha was also asked, isn't the desire for nirvana a desire? And he says, yes, it is. Very categorically, of course it's a desire, but it's a better desire than saying, kal kaun sa rasgulla khaunga? Isn't it? Now, point taken. However, very rightly last time when we had this conversation, you said human beings are not altruistic. They need that new caterpillar, new leaf to hold on to because of our caterpillar mind. So, Sri Krishna says very clearly, Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. He says, Brahma bhutaha. What is Brahma bhutaha? Now, the Upanishad says, Brahmavit brahmaiva bhavati. If you know Brahman, you become Brahman. Right? But at this stage, we don't know Brahman.
No.
We haven't done the practices necessary for getting to Brahman. So what have we got? This has been interpreted to say very beautifully that now I am established in my understanding in an unwavering way. It's an understanding. It's not my experience yet, but it's an understanding that I am actually not this body, mind, intellect construct. I am in reality SatChidAnanda. That understanding, the depth of it in an unwavering way, drida, that's the word used, in that unwavering way, I establish myself there. Number one. Number two, he says, Prasannatma. He is permanently happy because he is no longer bothered by the small wave, the ripple, the tsunami. It doesn't bother him anymore. Right? And the reflected consciousness comes out in the form of consciousness is bliss, and it comes out in that form of being pleasant all the time.
This is what we used to say about Hanumanji, that he is just forever happy.
Because he is permanently there. Right? He sees Ram everywhere. Same vision.
Prahlad.
Correct. And then he says, Na shochati, na kangshati. He is not going to be hankering, nor is he sad. And he says, Sama sarva bhuteshu. And there is sama, equality, in the truest sense, can only be when one can see somebody else as oneself. And he says, Sama sarva bhuteshu. Sarva bhuteshu, everything. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa once suddenly complained and said, stop that person walking on the grass over there. He's rubbing the grass so much that it's burning me. Can you imagine that degree of oneness? He couldn't see that person there. It's just that the fact of that man trampling on the grass with vigorous anger was creating that ripple which was affecting him. That degree of physical oneness. Sama sarva bhuteshu. Now, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa is not Brahma Bhuta. He is Brahman. Right? The realized master, Swami SatChidAnanda, is not Brahma Bhuta. He is Brahman. But the people who are aspiring to, in this journey, we have reached this stage where we have understood, we have seen, we have understood. It's not become us yet.
No.
But we need to know what will happen. So he very clearly says, as you progress in this journey and as you sit down and in your seat of meditation, you will become sama sarva bhuteshu and you will have the eternal devotion to me. To me meaning here, physical form of Sri Krishna, but that Sat, that Chit, that Ananda, you will completely be devoted to it. That is what you will get.
So beautiful. I'm so glad we did this journey. Samir, यदि ये भगवद गीता का लास्ट अध्याय है तो भगवान श्री कृष्ण के कुछ parting words, closing words, summarizing words तो होंगे. Tell us about those.
So he closes, he beautifully closes, very, very powerfully. He closes in verse number 66. And he says, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucham. Sometimes very badly interpreted. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam, come only to me. So if you don't worship Krishna, you will fall into hell. Right? You can't be a Buddhist, you can't be a Jain, you can't be a Christian, you can't be a Muslim. You have to worship only Krishna, only then will you. No, that isn't what he is saying. Right? No. If anything else, we've seen Krishna to be extremely consistent in his message across. So when he says dharma, what is dharma? Dharma, we have examined this earlier. Yes. Dharma, the word means the essential nature of being.
What I hold.
What is the...
What I am.
The essential nature of fire is to burn. Right? The essential nature of water is to flow. Now, today is you think you are the body, you think you are the mind, and you think you are the intellect. That is the essential nature of you as you decided today. Yes. That is what he's asking you to give up.
To taja.
Right? Sarva dharman paritajya. Paritajya. Give it up completely. That is what he's saying. He's not saying give up this religion, give up that religion. Dharma does not mean religion. No. So he's saying give up that limitation of all those essential natures of your body, which is to be the perceiver, the essential nature of your manas, which is to be the feeler. Give up the essential nature of the intellect, which is to be the thinker. Give that up. Sarvadharman paritajya. And take refuge in SatChidAnanda. Take refuge means what? Be constantly aware of the fact. Contemplate on the fact that you are nothing but other than SatChidAnanda. Mamekam sharanam vraja. And then he says, Aham tva sarva papebhyo. What is papa? Papa is that which leads you away from union.
Yes.
If you do this, you will move towards union and therefore I will free you from all. See, a person who is moving towards union, he can't sin. He can't commit acts which create an other. Because sin has to have an other.
Yes.
Right?
It has to be a harmed and a harmer and a harmee.
Even the smallest of sins like anger, right? Holding on to anger, desire, anger, the two big ones, right? Actually, there is a japa which is done at least once in a year, where we say Kamo Karashit, Manyura Karashit, right? Anger led me to sin, desire led me to sin. Because these are the two that take you away from your being, essential being at that point of time. And you then get involved in your intellect, you get involved in your manas, you get involved in your body starts glowing red because you have, right? So this, he says, I will free you from all sins. And then he says, don't grieve. Ma sucha. How can I be grieving when I am in proximity of my real self, which is SatChidAnanda? That is how he closes. So he says at the end, Sarva dharman paritajya. And I think even beyond the climactic Vishwarupa, he actually takes us to a climax here where he says, just do this. Give up your constant identification with your body, mind and intellect and contemplate continuously on the SatChidAnanda and you're done.
So, while that's the message that we are receiving right now in this moment as we're discussing Bhagwan Sri Krishna, but in reality, this is how he closed the Bhagwad Gita and that conversation in the middle of the dharma. Anything of importance in Sanjay's wrap-up versions.
Nothing.
But this is the last message that Bhagwan Sri Krishna gives. And then of course there is the description of what's happening on the field and therefore what is happening to Arjuna, etc., right? We started with the Arjun Vishad Yoga. We started with, this is the wrap up of a conversation that has happened through 18 adhyayas.
Chapter 700
and
shlokas.
Edited by Vedavyasa into chapters, like we said. Bhagwanji didn't do that. It started with Arjun's Vishad, his fear, his panic, his terror of what was going to happen, his attachments. And this is where Bhagwan Sri Krishna ends it, saying, thus, because it starts with Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, and it ends with
Dharma again. See, the first word, it's such a beautiful, again, the consistency and the poetry of it, the consistency of it. The first word, Dharma, almost the last word, Dharma. And it's all about that alone.
And this is Dharma happening. It's not even being or existing. This is Dharma happening on Kurukshetra. So, starting with, Arjun saying that my Dharma doesn't allow me to do this, to Bhagwan Sri Krishna saying, Taj the Dharma. Taj, and like you rightly said, in Bhagwanji's language, he's saying, touch that attachment to your identification with your body, mind, intellect, rise above it, stay in SatChidAnanda. I will forgive you all your sins, or what you think is sin, as long as you maintain your constancy of dridhta. You establish yourself in this SatChidAnanda and the Dharma and the pursuit of it, right? So the logical next question is, what happened to Arjun? So he was required after this entire sermon. The purpose of this, stated purpose of this, was to get him to pick up the arms and fight. We know the fight happened, but I want to know what happened in that moment. And then what happened to Arjun eventually? Did Arjun follow the path of that Drid Dharma Palan, and did he achieve moksha?
No, he didn't.
No?
See what happened?
Clearly he's a dim student.
No.
No.
You see, actually, after this, what was required, even in terms of Sri Krishna, saying, contemplate. Now, did Arjuna have the chance to sit down and say, let me internalize? No. Later on, over and all everything. He said, you gave me a very beautiful lecture at the beginning of the war. I seem to have forgotten all of it. Can you please repeat it?
Yes.
And Sri Krishna repeats that, but in a very rambling way, because Sri Krishna was not the inspired Krishna.
Shanti Parva, Moksha Parva.
So all the conversations over there basically are much longer, rambling sort of tale that he talks about, and it is a reiteration, but it doesn't really help. It's not this power packed. This is a path of understanding, Shravan, Manan, reflection and practice.
Yes.
Without that constant practice,
the tapasada, sadhana.
Correct, it's not going to happen. And therefore we need to do that, because otherwise, see, when he went into the battlefield, even he was fighting with Bhishma, he was restraining himself.
Yes.
To the extent that Krishna, who took a vow that I will not use arms,
had to come down, had to tell him ki matlab
main chakra lekar utarunga. And he got down. It's such beautiful there. Bhishma knew the reality of Krishna as the avatar Purusha, and therefore he said, come Pundarikaksha, come Purushottam. So, but the point is that Arjun did not. Arjun still was in the phase of attachment and so on and so forth. It requires practice. It requires, but there are two things that prevent us. The first is, for some students, I heard it and it clicked. Shravan, ho gaya, right? But then for most of us, there is what is called the impossibility paradigm. I can't be SatChidAnanda. And you're also saying that Eika is also SatChidAnanda. How can that be?
Correct.
Impossibility. When that happens, the only answer to that is, having done Manan, you understand it. And then you say, I have understood it, but I'm still getting angry. And I'm still saying my son, my car, right? I am still in contrariness, viparita bhava. And my understanding of the reality and my behavior are not the same.
Yes.
What do? Adhyaya, nididhyasana, constant practice. Come to more retreats, go for meditation camps, go for reading the Gita again and again, look and understand and dive deep into this. We have obviously summarized all of it, but you need to dive deep. Look at each shloka and read it and then practice it. practice it. Then nididhyasana happens. And that's why in the Upanishadic way of learning, it's Shravan, Manan. These are not steps. These are actually not all one together. They're processes, right? So for some, even just the Shravan is enough. You go to the Guru says, you are that. Right?
And I'm transported.
You're transported. Done. Right? It didn't happen. So you said, okay, now let me reflect. Having reflected, it still didn't happen, but you feel you've understood, you've become Brahma Bhuta, but you're not Prasannatma. You're not yet Prasanna. Then what happens? Practice. And it will happen. The beauty is here is that it doesn't matter where you are on the journey, you will reach. And that is a guarantee given in the Bhagwad Gita.
That's where the faith and the Shraddha comes in. No?
And which is why we apply Shraddha and we start our journey.
But एक बात बताइए समीर, where somebody as accomplished, as evolved, as close to the Bhagwan as Arjun came out of the Bhagwad Gita and could not attain moksha. Although he did his dharma, he was probably forgiven of some of his sins. But if he couldn't do it there, then with that access, with that jnana, with that blessing, what chance do we have that when I step away from here today, Samir?
So the answer is very simple. It's a guarantee. It's 100% guarantee. Arjun did not practice.
But Samir, if
it
Arjun
doesn't matter.
couldn't practice,
Let me put it like this.
Samir, hum kaise kare?
Let me put it. The presence of the Guru, Krishnam Vande Jagat Gurum is what we say. In the presence of the Guru is a signpost. His presence can energize you to do something. But if you don't do it, will anything happen? So you need to put it into practice. Now Arjun did not because of his circumstances, because of whatever other limitations that he had. And there are no sins to be forgiven or not forgiven. We'll not even get there. The point is, you actually need to sit down and contemplate. And what does it require? You know what it requires? Your starting of your journey. I think let me give you one starting point of the journey here. Every day, start with just sit in one place for 15 minutes and watch your breath. Oh, but isn't watching your breath something that Buddha talked about? Of course he did. Doesn't matter. That's your starting point. And when that happens, what does it start doing? It trains your mind to start getting still. Instead of running helter-skelter, that's your starting point. Did Arjun have the opportunity to say, नहीं मैं थोड़ा ना मन को पहले स्थिर करूं?
हाँ,
नहीं था उसके पास opportunity. आपके पास है. आप 15 मिनट, आपको कोई युद्ध पे जाना नहीं है. आप 15 मिनट बैठिए.
Samir, मेरी into this world is about a decade and a half old, right? And I would consider myself fairly constant, reasonably proficient, and there is sufficiency. And even if I say so myself, I know that I'm committed, dedicated. I also know the shift that's happened. I understand there's a shift that's also happened. But even at this moment, the sense of dived into the Amrita ocean, or am I sitting at the edge and sipping it?
Doesn't matter. Don't judge yourself. All you need to do here is be constant with your practice. When will it happen? It will happen. How thick are your vasanas? We don't know. We don't know. Karmano gahano gati, he says. Impact of actions are so deep that we don't know how to measure them. And hence, very, very clearly, since we don't know how to measure them, we just carry on with the faith, Shraddha, that the words given here have been proven to be true by people we have seen and known in our lives, whose lives have been documented clearly. And these people have lived lives of being prasannatmas in their life, stress-free, tension-free, pain-free, guilt-free, compassionate, people with whom you want to associate, people who attract people around them. These are people we have seen these people, right?
Yes, yes.
And how have they done it? They've done it by this. So we have practical example. So again, you see what happens is, and what you're asking is proof. And we look at proof in three ways. Do you think man stepped on the moon?
Because I have both sides of.
वो छोड़िए आजकल की narrative, वो flag ऐसा था वैसा था.
Okay, let's say yes.
Right? So Neil
Some man has stepped.
Neil Armstrong went and stepped on the moon.
Yes.
Did you see him step? No. So what did you believe in? You believed in the newspaper. Right? You believe in something, sometimes blindly. Here we are saying don't believe blindly. Shraddha, not Andhavishwas. And it's a question. But start the practice. And when you start the practice, what starts happening? Changes start happening. And you yourself said there has been a shift. This shift continuously keeps on happening till one day, does the sun rise with a lot of noise and fanfare?
Thank you for the 18 chapters of the Bhagwad Gita, Samir. Thank you for this journey.
Thanks to you for this privilege of doing this. It was a beautiful journey. Thanks to the Guru Parampara that has allowed us to do this. Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmat Acharya Paryantam, Tasmai Vande Guru Parampara. This Guru Parampara is what we learn from and we carry forward. With that, let us end the 18th chapter. Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagwad Gita su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Moksha Sanyasa Yoga Nama Ashtadasha Adhyayah. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.